everybody. It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again. Take two because of technical difficulties on my part, but this time we got Daniel of mexicanapelord. Thanks again for being here today, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So with the new album Survival Cannibalism, I just want to know like really what the thought process was going into it. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea? Was there like a lot of maybe trial and error? How did Survival Cannibalism sort of like come to be the light of day?
Right. Our singer John Hardy was actually he was reading a book that's called "In the Heart of the Sea." It's written by Nathaniel Philbrick, and it's a really old book. It's what the inspiration for Moby Dick was. And one of the chapters in the book speaks about a shipwreck off the coast of Maine that involved cannibalism because these men got stuck on a rock and they were forced to pretty much eat each other to survive. It was like a whole month out there in the winter. And our singer, he was reading this book and he was looking for inspiration to write about. And he emailed all of us and said, I got this idea, about a story, it's a real story. I want to kind of shed some light on it. And it's inspiring to me. Would you mind if I write a whole record about it? And we were just like, whatever floats your boat, man. You know what I mean? And so we said, go for it. And he ended up writing all this. And in the process, we each kind of learned about this crazy story. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about. So the record kind of shed some light on it. And it makes for some good material because it's really deep beyond the cannibalism and the, what happened. There's all these other themes that are going on like mutiny and treason. And so it's a pretty in-depth story, and we could probably write a whole other record about it. But that's what came out, and that's what the Mexican Ape Lords, the records are like. We just kind of throw it against the wall and see what sticks, and hopefully people like it. And if not, too bad. That's what it is.
Well,
but
did you like so? You kind of in a way mentioned it before, but like you went into the making of this album with this idea already in mind, right? It wasn't like you already had a couple songs written and then like,
actually we did have the basics were done pre the pandemic. The drums and the basic rhythms and maybe even the bass guitar was finished, and it was just the vocals and the lead guitar and like the overdubs that needed to be added. So once the lockdowns happened last spring, that's when we each kind of individually got to work. John on the vocals and me on guitar. I was kind of the last to handle it, and add the little touches and, the icing on the cake, if you will. So yeah, I mean, it was all one big experiment, and I think it came out pretty good because it could really go awry. You know what I mean? Even concept records aren't even that popular anymore. So you're really asking a lot of the listener to hang in there with it and to try to follow along. But, if people are looking for something deeper than your, regular metal and, something maybe a little historical and, then we've created something that I think they would like,
Yeah, you took kind of like the Mastodon approach to the making of this album in a way.
Right. It's pretty epic, I mean, the songs themselves were kind of epic and long, and they're not just like these snappy little 3-minute pop metal songs, they're deep and, brooding. And so it needed something with some substance and gravity, to really kind of make it all work, and I think John did a brilliant job just through the imagery of the lyrics and, his whole delivery, and tried to get into the heads of these men who were like stuck on a rock. But what I found, what's even more interesting is that, and he will never admit to this, but there's a lot of parallels to modern day, current events. And even though he's writing about a shipwreck in 1710, and there's modern day parallels that you can, a lot of people thought it was about, American politics when they heard it for the first time. And I had to explain to them, like, it's not, but maybe it is, so
there's a lot of albums that have like a lot more context behind it just because of the times that we are in. And it almost seems like heavy metal, it's up for debate on when heavy metal was invented, but it almost seems like that every metal album was preparing us for this very year.
Right. That's what I like about metal. It's always progressing, and I've followed it from its earliest roots. I grew up on Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Dio, Accept, Judas Priest and stuff. And it's always kind of growing and turning, into something else. And sometimes it's taking influences from the old school, and that we try to do that. It's kind of old school meets like modern, maybe a little touch of punk. So I think it's a sound that's definitely evolved, and it's that, is unique. I don't really see us being compared. I mean, you said Mastodon, but maybe just because of the,
The
epic themes or
concept.
whatnot, and uh, the complexity of it, but I think it's unique. I'm proud to be part of it. I think, and I'm looking forward to what we do next, because it's always going to be some new adventure.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of bands that like, address like, Mastodon has like their concepts of like history into their style of Fear Factory. They sing about like artificial intelligence and stuff.
right,
And do you feel that
futuristic.
maybe like the concept, obviously when it's a concept album, it always influences the lyrics, there's no denying that, but do you feel like maybe it also influenced the sound of the music as well?
I tried to. I mean, with my lines, I was trying to think. I don't know how to make metal sound nautical and maritime, but I was hoping that some of the harmonies, and I was channeling a little Iron Maiden, Rime of the Ancient Mariner at times. Um, but yeah, and I think a lot of these vocals are just so far out there that it deserved a little extra weirdness. I tried to sprinkle some weird sounds in there, that people hopefully maybe have never heard before. I used the whammy pedal a lot. I tried to go out of my comfort zone with the leads and the extra touches, just to create something different, because we've heard it all done before. So you try to create something new, I would hope.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with the idea of creating something new is you can't like really go into that with like a preconceived idea like, oh, let's do this. Like I think all the time something new was made, it was always done by accident. I heard that like a lot of
Yeah.
metal bands discovered their sound as they're playing like ZZ Top really fast, or like the Ramones like slower tempoed or something like that.
True. Even Sabbath just was kind of from blues, right? So absolutely, absolutely. That's metal is it's just a wonderful form of art that keeps expanding, and there's really no limits to it. That's why I like metal, because it's just the extreme. It's kind of like prog rock in the '70s. That music kind of hit a plateau, and you'd almost thought that was as far as it could go, and then you got like metal's kind of carrying the torch of that, and some of these modern acts of today. I listen to liquid metal and stuff like that, and my mind is blown by some of the sounds. Thy Art Is Murder,
Oh
and
my god,
all
they're
these bands like
amazing.
that. It's just like we don't even try to compete in that arena. We just do what we do, and for better or worse, but metal is metal. If it's good metal, it's good metal. And we tend to be more melodic than a lot of newer bands. But I still like the screams, and it's just not our thing.
Yeah,
But I can totally dig it.
to each his own. To each his own. You have the
Yeah.
periodic table of metal subgenres nowadays, and there's always it's
Oh man, yeah, you can have an encyclopedia on that. And I've gone down that rabbit hole on a lot of these styles. I've gone through my phases of hardcore metal and doom metal, and I've explored a lot of it. And I love it. I love all metal. Even the death metal stuff. I dig it.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I saw a little Morbid Angel influence into this album, so but
Yeah, it's heavy. Tony's into some heavy stuff, and Tony is basically the primary writer in the band. With in terms of the riffs, and he just goes for these just kind of Sabbathy almost brooding riffs. Just molten slabs of metal, I call them. And I'm not a writer, but I'm good at like adding and elaborating on what somebody else has done. I'll take a half-finished song and finish it. That's what I do well. And when Tony was, putting the band together, he picked his favorite players from around the area, and he tried to put something unique together. What's kind of interesting is that we made our whole first record and the band hadn't even met each other, and we put a record out. And we met when we made a video and stuff like that. We've hung out several times since, but a lot of people have this image of us in a room every week jamming, and it's not what we are. But we're no less a band, because
It's just the modern
you
day.
know,
Like
it's exactly, it's thank God we can do this. It's what allows us to be a band. And maybe if it wasn't for the pandemic, we'd have gone out, tried to play and do some touring, but that obviously is off. That's not going to happen for at least another year, I would say,
yeah.
before anything like that could happen. But
Well, look at the modern day times, so you guys met online and stuff. I think that's cool. Like, James and Lars met because of ads in the paper. So, like, people who want to say, oh, if you meet online, it's not the real thing. It's not like you met at the club. I'm like, it's 2020, dude. This is how people meet. If they're making
yeah,
music, what difference does it make? I don't care if I wouldn't have cared less if James and Lars met on Tinder at this point, like, which I do see a
right.
band
I
forming
mean,
because of that.
everybody, you, it's contrary to what I'm used to, because I did grow up with like one band or two bands, like my whole formative years of sticking with a bunch of guys. And you know nowadays this ability to just expand and to jam with different people and do different projects. And I'm in my studio right now, so I can record anything here and send it to California or New York or Boston, and the record gets done. Just you don't have to all be in the studio at the same time. And obviously I think we've proven that you can make something that's cohesive and a nice strong statement, um, piecemealing a record together. So but we will eventually play and tour and do those things. But for now, we even got another EP in the pipeline. As we speak, we're going to be working on another one that's going to come out, I think, early part of next year. And Tony's already written the whole next third record. So we'll have plenty of stuff to delve into. And I have no doubt we'll put out another one a year later after the EP, for
Yeah.
sure.
Just imagine if, God forbid, a pandemic of this magnitude happened in like the 80s or 70s. Like, bands wouldn't have been able to get anything done.
Exactly. Look at, I work from home. I'm Zooming. Everything is remote now. I don't even see a reason to go back into an office after this. We've all proven that we can do work remotely, and make records remotely. So, I mean, as much as I'd like to be around people, and we can still work. You can still get a pretty decent amount of stuff done from the privacy of your own home or home office. So I think that's here to stay. I don't think that it's going to go back to office space and people going into the office. I mean, some places maybe, but
Yeah. That'll
I
prevent a
don't see
lot.
it.
There'll be a lot less violence as a result in the future, right? Um,
Right. I mean, yeah, right. You put too many people together, and who knows what happens. But
yeah. But mark my
um,
words, when concerts do come back, we're gonna enter, I think, the best era of music in history. I think.
yeah, right.
Oh my
It'll
God.
be a huge
Um,
celebration.
America will be one big Ozfest.
Thank God. I think back to all the concerts I've seen and the festivals and the mosh pits I've been in, all the stuff, and I'm just like, these poor kids these days don't get to have that experience. It was a big part of my life, going to shows when I was younger and just mixing it up with people. And I never thought it would be, in jeopardy someday, or that you wouldn't be able to go to a show, and without vaccination papers or something.
Well,
It's
I
nuts.
I think that, like, look at it this way, all right? After the Paris attacks happened in 2015, I couldn't go into the venue wearing a hoodie. So like I could have sworn, I forgot where it was, but I think there was like a couple of venues, like, if the bands were selling hoodies, they wouldn't let them sell them there because of what happened. And after the tragedy of what happened with Dime, and how venue security changed, this is just this is unfortunate, but like, it's just gonna be like, concerts are gonna come back. You're not gonna stop the rock, and you're not gonna stop the metal, but the
Yeah.
world changes, in turn people change, and the way we experience things change as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we had it so good before, and just kind of took it all for granted a bit.
Yeah, never ask
But
what time the headliner's going on again. Just get your ass to the show as soon as possible.
right, I mean, there's so many shows that I just skipped and figured, I'll catch them next time, or and now I'm like, wow, it was really a privilege to be there. And um, you know, Dimebag comes to mind. When that happened, something like that really hadn't happened in rock and roll yet. I don't think. It was shocking. And it made you think. Gee, we're not secure like we think we are. Anything can happen. And at any of the concerts I've ever gone to, total full riots could have occurred. And
There was that
most of the
fire
time,
in Rhode Island that happened. I forgot what show that was, but remember that? Like I think
the
like
station, yeah, Great White.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep. There was like what? How many people lost their?
100 people
Yeah,
perished.
it's
Yeah,
and it happened again in Romania back in 2015 as well. So like
yeah, that's just brutal.
so
Now, ever since that happened, when I do go into places, I look for the exits,
yeah.
and I don't stray too far away from them. In case anything ever happened like that. You'd hate to think about getting stuck, but that's what happened to those people. There was plenty of exits, but they all rushed for the front door,
Yep.
and then obviously, they just clogged the entrance, and they couldn't get out. It's brutal.
Yeah.
I think band members died, and there was actually a door behind the stage where most of the band knew about the door, and they escaped behind the drum kit. And I think it was the new younger guitar player, I forget his name. It just got so smoky so fast he didn't make it. He didn't see where anybody had gone.
As one of the lessons I learned from my friends in the FDNY, shout out to them. If you can, don't leave through the front door. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Know when to leave is my that's the key to life.
Yep.
Knowing when to leave.
Yep.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. Now, kind of going back to the music, we digress. This was like so podcast style. I loved it. But like,
We
do you
do, I
do you feel like the music is also open to interpretation, or is there kind of like, do you try to maybe engage the listener into the story, being that there is a lot to be digested with that alone?
mm, yeah, I do think John's intent was to engage people into the story, but like I said, people who if you didn't preface it with the concept and everything, people would kind of go about making their own, guessing at what they think it was about. And like I said, I had people calling me, telling me, oh, that song that's about Trump and this and that. And I'm just like, it's actually about a shipwreck, but that's interesting you say that, because sometimes I hear,
What's the difference?
yeah, and I think it's okay. And I'd like, that's why, like, I don't ask John a lot of the questions about our first record's full of lyrics that are just riddles to me. They mean something to him, and he'll tell you sometimes what he meant, but I'd rather not know in some ways, just so it means something to me. Some of my favorite songs were ruined when I learned what the lyrics were. Like, oh, you mean he's not saying that?
Yeah.
So, but I do think if you just went into it blindly and listened to it, you would. I mean, they're not like totally wild lyrics where they couldn't mean something else. I mean, they absolutely are pretty open for interpretation. And if you wanted to delve into the story, it does get, really comprehensive about that as well. And not every song on the record is about the concept. There's a couple that don't have anything to do with the record. But again, these are songs that, they mean something a lot to John. And it's up to the person who's listening to either want to delve in or just enjoy it and not try to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
I think it's like with Iron Maiden, it's the same way. A lot of the songs are about like, To Tame a Land is about Dune, the book Dune. But I never read the book Dune, and I don't know what it's about. And I just like To Tame a Land because it sounds cool. And, so I think it's good to let a song mean something to you personally,
Definitely.
and not get too wrapped up in what the writer had in mind for what it means.
And the story with mutiny and the story, like, with, the cannibalism and everything like that. Like, I think there is ways to make it metaphorical where it can directly or indirectly resonate with people.
Right. I mean, it's exactly right. There's just themes of, it runs the gamut of emotions, like and it's in chronological order. Like the first song's kind of about the initial wreck and just people just scrambling to kind of figure out, are we going to make it? And then the second song's about, okay, we realize that we're screwed, and and it's called situation. They're in a very bad situation where they pretty much think they probably won't make it. And then in the third song, I think they're like running around trying to stay alive and keep warm, and they can't even light a fire. It's in the middle of the winter, and they didn't even have anything to light a fire. They're on a rock. They're looking for stuff, and then basically by the fourth or fifth song, they're like they've done the cannibalism, and now they're living with the guilt and the whole survival guilt and feelings of did we cross some kind of line, and they're also kind of going insane at the same time. So there's a whole bunch of emotions that it covers, and the trees and the mutiny part, the captain of this ship basically was some kind of scoundrel who they had a bunch of rope and cheeses and different things, but it was like a merchant ship, and he was trying to unload his cargo to like the French Navy. And now that's kind of where the treason part comes in. And the pretty much the crew members knew he was up to no good and started pointing fingers at him. And I think when they got back to England, the court cases happened, and the story goes on. I don't know much about that, but so it's pretty cool. I'm still kind of learning about it. I still am trying to figure out what some of it means. And I don't even have the lyric sheets. Our CD doesn't have them. So you really got to tune in and try to figure it out. But there's not a lot of information about this shipwreck either. There's like one book maybe that somebody wrote on about it. And it's some of the information's a little sketchy. And I'm sure John may have even fictionalized some of it to fit, the story, make it more interesting, perhaps. But I love it. If you're into that kind of, going down that rabbit hole of, historical things, and Iron Maiden always did it for me for that reason, because it was just more interesting than just writing about whatever. You actually learned a thing or two about history, and maybe it'll inspire somebody to want to learn more about this story, So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely look forward to more people checking it out. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this discussion. Is there just anything else that maybe with Mexican Ape Lord you'd like to bring? You mentioned you're working on some new stuff now. Maybe.
Yeah, we got a 4-song EP. Some outtakes, songs that were kind of offshoots from both of our records, and a couple new ones. A video coming. We'll just be out there, hopefully doing more interviews and podcasts and such. So, I would just say go to Spotify or even YouTube. Look up our videos, Mexican Ape Lord, and check it out. See what you think, and maybe tune in for the next one. Hopefully.
Yeah, and you'll learn a thing or two for sure. But
definitely, man.
Thank you so much, everybody. Mexican Ape Lord, Survival Cannibalism. Check it out. This is Alex from Heavy New York.